Hello guys and welcome to Chloe's Life Podcast, the very first episode. Today we're going to be talking about a very important topic and playing some games along the way. So without any further ado, let's get into it. First off, I want to mention what this podcast is about. Basically, this podcast is about what God did in my life and my life, basically. So God's number one in my life, and so I want to share him with absolutely everyone. And one way that I'm doing that is through this podcast. So I felt drawn to do something for a while, and I didn't exactly know what it was that I was supposed to do. But it kept coming back to podcast after podcast that I was listening to, and God kept pointing out something after each one I listened to, and it just felt like that was what I was supposed to do, is do a podcast. So that's why we're here, I guess. But without any further ado, let's just basically talk about what the topic is for this podcast. And basically what we're going to be talking about is depression. I feel like it's a very serious thing that is hard to deal with, but also it's something that needs to be talked about. And out of all the podcasts that I've listened to, which I've listened to a lot, I've never heard one on depression, ever. And so I just kind of felt like that was what we were supposed to do for this first one. So it's on depression, and we're going to be playing some games as we go along. So I had my mom pick out some would you rather questions for the first game that we're going to be playing in this first podcast. So I had her pick out some questions that she wanted to ask, so now I'm just going to go ahead and let her ask those.
Okay, I'll have 10 questions here, and Chloe will answer for you all, and I want you all to answer too, and to comment on your own. Let us see what those answers are. But number one would be, what do you feel...
Would you rather eat pizza or eat ice cream, that type of stuff?
Can we back it up?
How?
It's a bad hiccup. Okay, sorry. Anyway, the first one would be, would you rather have a dog for a pet or a cat for a pet?
Well, for me, it's a dog. I'm more of a dog person than a cat person. But I want you guys to leave your comments down below if you're watching on YouTube. On Spotify, I know you can't leave comments down below, but if you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment down below of what your pick would be, a dog or a cat.
Ready for number two?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you rather? Would you rather eat at an Italian restaurant or a Mexican restaurant?
For me, Mexican, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Doesn't matter. I know our family likes Mexican a lot, but you pick what you would like to eat at.
Okay, number three. If you had a dog that would sneak and take food off the table, like our dog did and pulled a steak off the table, what do you think your reaction would be? Would you rather holler at the dog, spank him, and chase him out with a broom? Or would you use newspaper? And what would you do if your dog did that?
I wouldn't be happy. I like my food, and I like to eat, and I would not be happy if you took all the food off of the table. But I don't know, I'd probably swat him with a newspaper. That type of thing. I don't think I'd just throw him outside. But yeah, something like that.
Throw him outside. Okay.
Boom! You're out the door.
Oh, almost literally, actually. Okay, number four. If you had a nice sunny day that you could do outdoors things, and you had your choice of what you like to do, would you rather go hiking, canoeing, or would you rather have some type of sports activity outdoors?
Oh, that's hard.
That's three
hard.
choices.
Okay, I like canoeing a lot, but I probably wouldn't pick canoeing. I like hiking a lot. I'm going to have to go with hiking for that one.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go with hiking.
Number 5, if there was a really bad rainy day and you had to do something indoors, would you choose going to a gym and doing sports? Or would you choose doing puzzles? Or would you choose reading a book?
Probably sports at a gym, knowing me. Probably. Yeah, just running around the gym playing basketball with my dad or something. But yeah, I'd probably pick the gym.
Okay. Number 6, this is switching it up a little bit. If you are listening and you're younger and you haven't had your first car yet, be realistic, not a Lamborghini or anything, but what would you like your first car to be? Would you rather it be something like a sportier style, like a Mustang or a Corvette, or would you like something a little simpler, something like a little Chevy or a small Ford or something like that? What would you like your first car to be?
So I like sport cars a lot. I do. And I remember my dad used to joke around with me all the time because I would always say I want a Lamborghini for my first car. He's like, it's either a Lamborghini or a college. Because I'm not getting you both. But, so I like sport cars a lot, but for me, I'd probably go with something a little bit more simple. I like a lot of the Hondas and the Toyota cars, so I'd probably go with something like that. But I definitely do like my sport cars. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see this picture. But yeah, I definitely do like my sport cars. And let's go with one more question.
Okay, I won't do 10. We'll stop at number 7. This one is, if you're listening and you're young, and you're going on a first date, would you rather go someplace like a nice restaurant and a concert, something like that, or would you rather go hiking and picnic?
Hiking and picnic, probably.
Okay.
For me, it'd probably be a hike and a picnic. Get to know each other, talk, all that type of stuff. So yeah, it'd probably be a hike and a picnic for me. But thanks, Mom, for asking all of those questions. I always enjoy those type of games. And I felt, when we did a podcast, I asked my dad, I remember we were down here, and I asked my dad, should I have a verse for every other week, or every week, whenever. And he's like, probably. And I was thinking, and I remember I was reading my devotions down here on my desk, and I got to the section where there's this verse in between a new section in your devotional book. And so it came to this verse, and it was Psalms 34:17. And I enjoyed this verse a lot, and so I decided to go with this verse. And it's Psalms 34:17, and it says, "The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth, and delivereth them out of their troubles. The Lord is nigh unto them of a broken heart, and saveth them such as be of a contrite spirit." And I just felt like that kind of went along with what we were talking about, the topic of depression and everything. So it's just, all along this way, I just feel like God just keeps pointing out what I'm supposed to do, and just keeps making it easier for me to do this podcast. And I love that. Because he always does that. Wherever you are, he'll make a way for whatever he wants you to do. So don't worry about there being a way for you to do what he's asking you to do, because if he's actually called you to do it, he will make a way for you to be able to do it. And so depression is it's a very hard topic to talk about. But I have my parents with me, my dad and my mom, and so I've asked them to share a few thoughts on what they think depression, and on what they think of depression and all that type of stuff. I know my mom and dad have both struggled with it a little bit. It kind of runs in our family. So I think I'm going to move this mic a little bit. It won't be right over your face. But
You need to scoot over this way some too.
But so now I'm going to ask my mom to go ahead and ask some of those questions. Not ask some of those questions. I'm going to ask my mom to share a little bit of thoughts on what she thinks depression, what she thinks depression is and all that type of stuff. So you can go ahead, Mom.
Okay, there probably will be more on this topic later on, but I'll try to make it as broad and applicable as I can. But definitely, depression is a serious thing, and something that people may not realize is that a lot of times there are multiple reasons for why someone would be depressed. Being actually depressed is having a sense of hopelessness a lot, being discouraged. It's very hard to be happy or stay happy, and it often accompanies thoughts about yourself that are not very helpful at all. Sometimes serious feelings and thoughts about inadequacy. And it's definitely very close cousin of anxiety. But something that people don't realize a lot is it's often hereditary. And yes, there are issues where there could be sin involved, and people could have done something that is wrong, and it bothers them, and it's created kind of like a cancer inside of them, and that can cause depression. But some people have assumed that if somebody's depressed, they want to ask, "What did you do wrong?" And that is just not, that comes from somebody that doesn't understand depression, because often a person hasn't done anything wrong to become depressed, even though that can be the case. A lot of times there are circumstantial things, such as job loss, a move, very difficult things such as something in your family.
Church problems.
It could be church problems. It could be a lot of things. And also, like I said, I won't elaborate on it now. I might in future times, but heredity is an important factor. There are actually, I don't know how to explain it. There are actually patterns that are scientifically proven, that some people have imbalances in their brains with their brain chemistry and the natural occurring chemicals in the brain that help people to be more balanced in their thinking and help with better moods and stuff. And that can be a very strong hereditary factor that's passed down through generations. And we have, like I said, we have a good bit of that in our family. And one thing that I feel is very important is that you open up and talk about it, learn all you can about it, share it, because that's part of the key to overcoming and being a victor through having that. And one other thing I'll say about it is, as far as the physical stuff, sometimes there could be an issue like a thyroid imbalance or something else that really makes it a lot harder to overcome. So having to take a medicine to straighten out a chemical imbalance is not a bad thing. But I know from experience that sometimes I feel self-conscious about that and feel like people might put me in a stereotype. Oh, she has to take medicine for that. What's wrong with her? But back in the yesteryears, people would have problems with this, but nobody wanted to talk about it. And there wasn't much counseling and all that available, wasn't a lot of research done. So a lot of people just suffered silently because they were scared to open up and they didn't want to be labeled. And so something that I've noticed and I've been very grateful for is there's a lot of help out there today. There are a lot of, there's psychologists, there's counselors, and there's nothing wrong with having to get a counselor. I mean, there's scriptures in the Bible that talk about in the multitude of counselors there's safety. And God has actually given those people wisdom, and they've studied long and hard to try to understand things. And you can often get a lot of help from people like that. But of course, I'll point out that that's not to replace God. God is to be the first counselor, the ultimate counselor, but he gives wisdom to human beings to help each other. So don't feel bad about it if you have to go talk to somebody and get professional help, because sometimes people don't realize how important that is until they hit a crisis in their family. And then they're very glad that there's people out there dedicated for just that. And that's all I'll say for now.
And then, Dad, share a few of your thoughts on what you just think about depression and everything.
Well, depression is real. And if anybody says they've never been depressed, I would have to say that they're perfect. But no one is perfect in a sinful world. There's a lot of help for depression, but the most important thing to help with depression is have someone that you can go to that has a listening ear, that you can talk to, that may not even say a word. Because a lot of times a person who's depressed, hearing themselves verbally, can also come up with a remedy for their depression.
Mm-hmm.
But words of wisdom from someone that you feel confident in listening to you is always very helpful too. There are two types of depression. There's a spiritual depression, and that depression comes from sin in our life. And then there's a physiological depression, which comes from some physical imbalance within us that we do not have control of. Now, ultimately, God can bring healing if He chooses to, or He can choose to use man that He's created to provide a help through medication or through some type of natural technique that will help you through the depression. But I am thankful to say that depression does not have to last forever. It can be only temporary, and you can get out of that valley and out of that darkness on top of the mountain and in the light. And I'm thankful for that. God can help us through it all.
My little sister calling for Mom. I think my dad's leaving now because he only had that part in here, but I'm thankful for what they said, and it's definitely very true. It's something that's very hard to deal with, and I feel like a lot of people don't want to open up and talk about it. I feel like a lot of people are just scared. Like, what will people think of me now that they know I struggle with depression and all this type of stuff? And it's really crazy because, yes, you're worried about what people will think, but also it's such a common thing anymore that if they actually judge you about it, it's just, that's on them. It's not on you.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with you.
Mm-hmm.
God made you the way you are, and He has a plan, and He'll help you through what you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And like my mom and dad both stated, counselors, people that are there to help you through things. And I have several counselors that my insurance pays for and everything. And just God, He's like the biggest counselor though to me. And when you go to Him and just pray and talk to Him, and He just lays it all in perspective. And I feel like when I've let go of my devotions, a lot of people are like, well, devotions are just a thing that Christians do. No. Devotions are something that if you let them go, you will start to go down in your spiritual life. You will start getting cold in your spiritual life. And that's happened to me even just recently because I've kind of just pushed devotions off until the end of my day or until I wanted to do them. And I might never get to them.
Mm-hmm.
And because you push them off, and then you realize at the end of the day, you're already in bed, the light's out. You're like, I didn't have my devotions. I didn't have my special time with God for the day. And that's something that it just makes me feel so guilty inside when I do that and when I just let it go. And it's just something that I feel like a lot of people deal with, and they just don't want to open up and talk about it, like, at all. And even how long depression's even been going is incredible, because it was going back in Job. Let's talk about Job for a minute. Job was a man in the Bible. You can go read his story. It's in the book of Job in the Bible. And he struggled with depression he had to have struggled with depression. I don't know if it actually says it in here, but I've done a few studies to see who I could get from the Bible that struggled with it, and there were several different people. David was one of them. Job is another one. But think of losing everything. Absolutely everything. He lost his children. He lost his house. He lost his animals. He lost his workers. And then reports come back and his servants come back, one after another, and they're like, I was the only one that escaped. And these people came, they took all your sons and daughters, they're all dead, or else they're all slaves, something. And he's like, what? God, what are you doing here? Like, what's your plan through all of this? And it's just, it's completely mind-blowing in some ways if you think of how long depression has actually been going on. From the beginning, it's been going on. From the fall of man, depression's been going on. Depression wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for the fall of man.
Yeah.
And so it's been going on for so long, and it shouldn't be something you're guilty about. It shouldn't be something that you feel bad that you have it, because so many people do, and you shouldn't feel bad that you have depression. I am doing something that could probably make me very vulnerable. But I'm going to share my story of back in March of 2020. A lot happened back in March. This story I'm about to share happened back in March. Everything, I got saved back in March. A lot of things happened in March of 2020. But the biggest thing that happened was me getting saved. But next to that would have been this story. And I was trying to describe to some of my friends about the first episode and stuff, and it's definitely one of the scariest moments of my life that ever happened. And my parents, for a while, had known I'd been struggling a little bit with some stuff, but they hadn't really thought about it that much. I didn't really talk to them that much about it. And so I'd been struggling with depression for probably a few months by this time.
Yeah.
Probably about a few months by this time. And it just kept getting worse and worse, and I didn't do anything about it. I just kind of let it go, kept blaming myself for it, didn't really talk to anybody, didn't open up to anyone. And I opened up a little bit to my mom. But then, I don't even know when I actually ended up telling you that this happened. I don't even remember. I think it was like when I had to. Yeah, it was like when I had to tell you guys, because it was crisis by then. But in March of 2020, I remember my mom and dad were gone. Everyone in the house was gone. There was nobody in the house but me. I was alone in the house, and it'd gotten so bad at this point. And I didn't really want to deal with it anymore. I didn't want to think about it anymore. I just wanted to be gone. And I was not in the right mindset at this time. I don't like to use this word, but I was kind of going psycho. I mean, I was just not, I didn't have control over myself in some ways. And so I remember walking in the kitchen, and we have it under lock and key now, but how we used to have it was you walk into the kitchen, and over here on the counter, it's hard to describe when you're watching or when you're listening, but over to your right is a knife block. It's where we keep our chopping knives and everything like that. Like when you chop vegetables and steaks. All that type of stuff. And, I don't know why I felt like I had to describe that. Of course they're kitchen knives. That's what they're used for. But, so, I remember walking in there and looking over at those knives, and I'm like, it's over. I didn't want to live anymore. I honestly did not want to be here anymore. And I just remember standing there, and I'm like, God, what have you made my life into at this point? What have you done? I mean, you're supposed to, I grew up in a Christian home my whole life. You're supposed to be the one who takes care of us? What are you doing? You're making my life miserable. What are you doing to my life? I remember thinking that, and I grabbed one of the steak knives, one of the littler knives, probably about that long, and I remember grabbing it, and I remember holding it by my side for a minute, and then I remember bringing it up right about here. Right about here. And I remember being like, what have you done? I mean, you brought me to this point, really? And you're supposed to take care of me? And what have you done to my life? I hated him. I hated God. I hated everybody around me, honestly. And everybody that was happy, I hated. I mean, if you were happy, I probably hated you. And I don't anymore, I promise. But it's just, I was so jealous of everyone that was happy in life because I wasn't happy. I had no happiness in my life at that point. And remember bringing it up right to my throat. I remember the blade touching my throat. Right about here. I can still feel it. It feels, I don't know how to describe it. And I remember the blade touching my throat. I remember thinking, it's over. I remember thinking, you're worthless. There's nothing for you. I remember thinking, this is all God put you here for. Was just to struggle and your life to be miserable and then die. Mm-mm. That's what I was thinking. And I remember pushing it against my throat, the blade. Pushing it right there against my throat. And I remember, this is when I start getting soft. It is when I start talking about this. I remember this hand. And there was no one there. It was only me home. I remember this hand. It grabbed onto my wrist. And I remember pulling against it, trying to slit my throat. I remember it. It's like it was yesterday. And it just kept pulling and kept pulling away from my throat, and it just wouldn't let me do anything. It honestly would not let me do anything. And I tried my best. I mean, I tried my best to pull against it. And I couldn't. As much as I tried, I was no match. You're no match for God. As much as you try, you are no match for God. And I was no match for God because there was no way it was anybody else but him. Because Satan was trying to make me kill myself.
Right.
And God was standing there, pulling away, saying, no. If you just give your life to me, I'll take care of you. I'll guide you.
Yes.
I'll be there for you. And it was such a, for real. It was like, I mean, if your dad ever grabs your arm and is like, nope, your mom ever grabs your arm, like, take your hand out of the cookie jar, can't have any cookies until after dinner. And it was just like that. It was that real. And it grabbed on right about here, and it just pulled. And I don't know how to describe it. It just would not let me do anything. And it's just, that's, God will be there, okay? Whatever you're going through, it doesn't matter if it's depression or just bad anxiety or if it's just any type of mental thing, any physical problem, anything. Spiritual problem, God's there. And he won't leave. And he won't go anywhere. He'll be right there. And it's just, it was so, and I'm kind of running at time limit right now, but it was so for real. And my computer's telling me to slow down. But it was so for real, and it was just crazy. And I just remember God was just so good. He was so good. And so now, as I'm running out of time, I have to answer some questions that were asked. Okay. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Okay. In 5 years, I'll be 17 years old. I'll probably be looking at colleges. Great. I just ran out of time. My computer just shut off. 30 minutes is definitely a deadline. And my computer just completely shut off. But, so if you're watching on YouTube, I can keep going. If you're watching on Spotify, listening on Spotify, I'm sorry. You're gonna have to go watch the whole thing on YouTube. But, because I'm not recording this again. But, 5 years I'll be 17. I'll probably be looking at colleges. I might be dating. I don't know. Whatever God wants me to be doing. Definitely whatever He wants me to be doing. The next question is, why did you start a podcast? Okay, so I kind of described it earlier, but basically just because I felt like it was what God was telling me to do. I felt like it was what He was asking me to do. And, it just was so real. So real. And He just kept making it stick out to me that I was supposed to do that. And then the next question, I have them wrote down here. What is something you want to do when you get older? I've looked at medical school a lot. OBGYN doctor is something that's always kind of stuck out to me. I've definitely looked at that a lot. If you don't know what OBGYN means, it means you are a baby doctor. A lot of people just call it a baby doctor. You deliver babies, you take care of babies, all that type of stuff. But yeah, an OBGYN doctor. Yeah, a women's doctor. So I've definitely looked at that a lot, being an OBGYN. And then, I think that's about all. I feel like I'm missing a question. Okay, I'm looking down here, the questions, and, yep, I got them all. Yep, I got 3 questions. That was the ones we had. But, until next time, you can tune in, not next Friday, but the Friday after that, you can tune in, and just stay encouraged, and just follow God, and do whatever He wants you to do, because He will not let you down, and your life will be great. There will be hard times, but your life will be great. So just follow Him. Until next time, stay encouraged and follow God.